All right. In a most surreal moment, I am so excited to welcome everybody to another episode of Let's Discuss with Meg Duke. This week, I have the one and only Mano Agapion on my show. I am without words. Writer, comedian, podcaster, drag her, we love trash, podcast killed the video star. These are all things that I actually listen to myself. Please welcome Mano Agapion. Hello.
Hi. Oh my God. Hey. What's up? How are you doing?
Oh.
Thank you so much for listening to the one and only RuPaul's Drag Race Recap podcast. That means a lot to me, Meg. I really appreciate that.
The one and only. I spend every Monday with you.
I love that. That's honestly my favorite part of podcasts. Genuinely is just like being a part of someone's rituals. I think that's really fun and intimate.
Yeah, I know. And that's what's so fun for me is like, I always start my podcast by saying like, how do we know each other? And when I slide into someone's DMs, I'm always the one who answers the question. So you don't have to feel like, well, you were a creeper and you made me come on your podcast. But it's like,
yes,
I sent into your DMs because I was listening to an episode with Joseph a few weeks ago. And you had said specifically like, you put things out in the universe and what you want, you shall receive. And I was like, you know what? I've been thinking about it for a couple weeks and I'm just going to ask. And he's probably not going to answer because he probably gets a ton of people asking for things. And you were like, yes, that's great. When can we do it?
Yeah. I think your pod's really interesting, very interesting and very necessary. And I've just always been someone who wants to talk more about what we're feeling and thinking. And I think it's a strength and a weakness, but I can't keep nothing in. Yeah. I gotta talk about it. Whatever's going on, it's gonna come out.
Yes. I'm the same way. I cannot suffer in silence. If I see something, if I feel an injustice, I have to be like, so here are my thoughts on that. And here are my 3 examples, suggestions of ways that we can fix that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. So that is how I was introduced to you, was by the one and only Drag Race podcast in the universe.
It's a dream. It's a dream to have a monopoly. I mean, I know monopolies are evil, but I feels good.
Not in this case. Absolutely. Yes. And so of course I will try to not make this entire conversation about RuPaul's Drag Race. No, we have other things to talk about.
We'll try. Okay. But wherever you take me, I'll go.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was curious just before we kind of get into the deeper stuff, how did you decide that hosting, writing, acting, obviously getting into podcasting, how did you get to that space?
It's interesting. And it's something we're going to talk about, and I'm just going to get right into it.
Yeah. The
line between trauma and comedy for me is this razor thin. And so I'm constantly trying to unpack it because I love laughing at pain. I do. And I think it's healthy, but I also think I got to confront some of the stuff I love to laugh at. So I think I literally came to comedy through trauma, frankly. Family, super dysfunctional. I was queer in North Carolina. I'm brown and Middle Eastern. I was chubby, body image. I mean, it all was how do I deal with this? And so I kind of discovered comedy. I discovered comedy through that. So that was a passion. But also at an early age, I was I got to figure out how to make this my world, whether it's writing or acting or hosting. This is the direction I'm going to go in. And, I did theater in high school and I was the funny, chubby guy. And I was okay, this feels good. I'm feeling a lot of validation doing this. And then I just kept going on that journey in college when I discovered improv and sketch in college. Mm-hmm. And they're theater was fun. I was oh, this is really where I want to be. I always gravitated towards where's the comedy in the performance. So I really leaned into improv and sketch. And then that took me into the UCB theater world where, because I had an internship from my college that brought me to LA. So then I was okay, I'm in LA. I got to do improv. I'm going to perform at the UCB theater. And I just really made that world my community. And that's where I met oh my God, so many of my best friends, wonderful people. Betsy Sidaro, Nicole Byer, Drew Tarver, just like wonderful people who are absolutely crushing it in the industry. And that's, so I feel like that world then, thankfully, over years of hard work, started opening some doors of like, okay, I think I can do this professionally. I can start writing, I can start acting and stuff like that.
Amazing. Yeah, you hear that a lot when people talk about like, especially comedy. I think a lot of performance generally comes from a lot of trauma, the desire to express, but the comedy especially. And what I love when I listen to you is that quickness. Like, I love when you're like, you give alts in your like, like, or it should have been this. Like, I actually would love to see you go and do Betsy DeVos on Snatch Game. Because I feel like it could be done well. And it's like that quickness is like, I kind of feel like maybe perhaps I'm not trying to be your therapist, but like that defense mechanism that like builds up over time. And so you just are constantly able to be like, bam, bam, zinger, 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 because it's like.
Yeah, no. And I mean, please, I welcome any, I am not afraid. I mean, thankfully being on a therapy journey in the past 2 years, I'm no longer afraid of any feedback in that area. But yeah, that's where it came from. Like literally in middle school, middle school was a real moment because this is so funny. I was so gay. I used to like read people. And like, because I was defending myself, but also it got to the point where like people were like, oh my God, say something funny about this person. So like I literally was, I think at an early age, like either, reinforced and then trying to hone in on that skill of like, how can I quickly say something punchy, funny, mean?
Wow. Yeah. So the library was open for you in middle school.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even know. I was keeping the legacy of Paris's Burning alive.
Yes, exactly.
Isn't that wild?
I have got to stop referencing Drag Race. I'm so sorry.
No, I think it's a treat. I think you should. I think it's an important cultural touchstone.
Well, it is, and it's like a simple white girl, straight cis from the Midwest. I'm like, please bring this content into my life. Like, you don't get to see a lot of that. So I'm so happy that it's just like in everyone's living room now and just like so normalized, like just being.
Yeah, wait, when did you fall for Drag Race? I gotta know.
Interestingly enough, so I'd heard of it years ago, but then I moved from Houston, Texas to Kansas City, literally on St. Patrick's Day of 2020. So we got here when the Pandy met, like
wow,
literally, like we got here on a Thursday and Monday, Kansas State issued shelter in place. So, and we knew nobody here. So like, we're pretty good at making friends. And so we're like, oh, we'll go to Kansas. It'll be fun. And then we knew nobody. And so then I had at the time an 8-month-old and we were afraid to send to school because we hadn't started him in school. We didn't know anybody. And so I stayed home for 4 months and I was like, Drag Race. I don't know if it like popped up on Hulu or something, like as a suggestion.
You're like, I need something.
And I was like, I've been wanting to watch this. I've got nothing but free time now. So I would like have it on my little iPad in the corner. And like, it was so funny because my son would like start walking, like dancing to like, CoverGirl. And like, we like put the bass in your walk. And now he really, he's 2.5 now, but he loves Sissy That Walk. Like, I know this is way future. This is insane. Like, don't get married if he doesn't want to. Marry whomever you want. But like, if he gets married and he has any sort of thing, I'm like, can we please dance to Sissy That Walk? Like, he's 2.5. Calm down, Meg.
That's really cute. Oh, that's so great.
So that's the origin story. And I literally powered through 10 seasons or whatever season we were on. And then, of course, I got caught up to being able to watch live with like, and then All Stars and everything. And Canada and UK, and I've just started Holland. I hear Thailand is a hoot, but like
I love it. Yeah, the universe, I mean, puts Marvel to shame when you're like, oh my God, there's so much Drag Race.
So much. And you have to do it for a living. So it's like you like have no choice.
Thank God I still love it. I'm still so obsessed. Yep.
Yeah, your passion is apparent in all of
Thanks.
Yeah, no, believe
I still love it.
So yeah, so that's that. And then of course I wasn't getting enough content. So then I needed to start listening to content.
Isn't that funny? I mean, no, it blows my mind too, where I'm like, I can't believe people listen to me talking about the show. Like I thank God, I love it. But it's just so funny. I'm like, wow, we love Drag Race.
Yeah. Well, and also too, like I said, basic girl from the Midwest, like there's so many things that like, or references or points of view that people are saying, and that sometimes just goes straight over my head. And I'm like, oh, thanks, Mano. Didn't
Yeah.
get that. Okay.
Oh, good. I love that.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I love it. And then, like I said, too, I love it when you come through and like fix things and you're like, oh, if they'd have done this, it would have been better. And if they'd have done that.
I wish, but and that's the beauty part of the show. They want, it is a TV show. And they don't want someone to fix it. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yep.
We wouldn't have the memorable moments if we didn't have stars with highs and lows.
Truth. Yes. And also I should mention that you are, what is the official title? Like a writer on the show?
I guess it's a consultant. Yes. Producer, consultant, whatever. Yes. It was really great. I got to work on season 14, building a relationship with the people who built that show. That was that's a dream come true. And it was a dream come true. And I still don't think I've processed that, because it's so strange to be like, this show like raised me, this, and then I got to have some input on the show. I was like, that's so weird. What a world.
Yeah. Well, and we will try to bring this back to mental health, but like, I like every episode, I wait for you to say like, oh yeah, that was based on one of my ideas. Oh yeah, that was based on one of my, and I'm like, yeah, you did.
Yeah. Well, the exclusive. Well, I have to say with Moulin Rouge, I did not have that idea, but it came out. I didn't say this on Drag Her yet, so this is great. You got exclusive. It came out of the pitch. I was like, we should do a parody of Burlesque. Have you seen Burlesque?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I think we should do a parody of Burlesque. And they were like, Burlesque is a little limiting. What about this? And and of course, I was like, yeah, great, Moulin Rouge, of course.
Yeah.
But if I had it my way, Burlesque, Roulesque. Come on, Roulesque. It's right there.
Amazing. That would be amazing. But of course, sponsored by Moulin Rouge, currently seen in New York City on Broadway. So.
Yes. There we go. I love that I'm never mad when they're like, and guess what? We got some money from Bubbly. We got some money from this company.
Yeah. Make your paper, man. I'm not upset. I have sponsors on this show. You have your sponsor. Like absolutely not mad about it, right? Someone's got to keep the lights on.
Yep.
Yes. So sorry for those people who have never seen a moment of Drag Race. Obviously, that is your problem, and you need to fix it. But also, we will.
And that's just your amuse bouche. Now you can go explore that if you want.
Yeah. But no, I appreciate you, like, even in the very first question, which is like kind of like a softball, like, how did you get into acting? It's like, but it's not though, because it's like the trauma of it all. And it's like, how do we get to this space of like your thoughts on self-worth and how that all evolves, and like the images that you see and what you take in and you choose to make your personalization versus what you're able to reject. Like, what has that been like for your self-worth journey?
It's really ever evolving. And I have to say, like, it was, and this is obviously, I want to hear your opinion on this, because like I was doing well and I was waiting for these like big breaks in my career to define my self-worth. And it worked for a second, where I was like, oh, wow, I got to join the Writers Guild of America and I got to join SAG and whatever. I was like, I've gotten some writing jobs now, and that was incredibly validating. But now comes the confrontation of like, are you going to let your self-worth only be defined by a job you get? And
exactly.
And it turns out that's bad. That's not a good idea.
Yes.
So I'm trying to now confront the fact that I have achieved some big goals in my life, and I'm very proud of that. And I have self-worth that is not tied to that. Yeah.
And it's so tough. And it's one of those ever moving targets as well. So like, oh, okay, so I'm in Screen Actors and I'm in WGA, but then what's next? And there's nothing bad about continuing to set new goals. Like we talk about goal setting all the time in therapy, and it's short-term and long-term, and how important it is. And it's also, but like, it's good to set goals to keep yourself productive, but not insofar as, and then I will be more worthy. And then so now I need, and that's where that, and it's so distinct for every person. And being able, but it's just that intentionality of it all, of like, I know that I'm not wanting that because it's going to make other people like me more, or
right. It's tough. It's weird, man. And it's like, so another example I'll give is I just finished writing a movie for me. I'm very proud. Yeah, I'm very proud.
Huge.
But it's huge and I'm very proud of it and it's going to be great. But I immediately was like, how do I get the validation that makes me feel like the effort I put into it was worth it?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's fine that I want that, but I also need to take a second to be like, bitch, you wrote a movie. Like,
yes,
that's so cool. And I'm proud of it. And I feel creatively fulfilled, but I can't help but want to scratch the other itch of like, but who's going to pay you? Who cares about it? What industry person is going to look at it? And it's really hard to balance those two for me still.
Yeah, well, because it's like, again, that was a goal for you, is even just finish the dang script. And then like, and that is, oh my gosh, literally, you didn't even mention anything about like what is going from there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you wrote a script, but like, yeah, but especially, I mean, I can't only imagine being in LA and like being around the people and the things that you see. It's like, and then, and you're right. I loved how you're saying like, how do I just take a moment?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting, being creative is interesting. And like trying to get out of your way and, you know, trying to make sure the goblins in your brain aren't trying to win the day. Yeah. Because sometimes they really want to win. Yeah, they really want to win. I don't know, even when you're talking to friends, like another thing I struggle with is like, let me see. Even when someone loves me, I'm like, yeah, you're crazy. You know, like you love me, but that means something's wrong with you.
That's exactly right. Yes. And that's
what is that?
There. Because it's like, we just feel like we just don't deserve it. And so even when somebody shows you just the most unconditional love and being so excited to just be in your presence, even though you can't really offer them anything. And even in those moments, it's still like, well, that's just because you're crazy. And that's just, you know? Yeah.
It's wild. And, you know, I gotta say, with the world reopening, I'm also like, we'll see how this is going to change from week to week. But just this past weekend, I put myself in a vulnerable place because I felt like I had more armor, or like I was like, I almost wanted to test out if my newfound self-worth journey is working by putting myself in a slightly vulnerable place. Yeah. And it went well. It went great. Yeah. I was really pumped about it. I'll just give the listeners, also you, like context what the hell I'm talking about. I went with my friend to a very white, gay, pretty party. You know what I mean? Just like hot white gay guys. And even though I am engaged and so happy, when I go into spaces like that, I expose myself to judgment, or, you know, it could be perceived judgment. I definitely make myself vulnerable because even when I go to speak with someone, I have to confront the fact that they might be like, please don't try to fuck me. Please don't. I'm sorry I'm cussing so much. I'm very vulgar.
This is a very safe space. Go ahead. Okay. The same thing I tell my clients. They're like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
We'll get a little E on this episode. It's not a
But I have to, you know, it's like even just being like, all I'm trying to do is connect with the person, but I feel I have to prepare myself to have that person rebuff me as if I'm trying to make a sexual connection.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a very vulnerable place to be in, where it's like, I'm just trying to connect with you genuinely, but I have to be ready for you to just either be disinterested or keep me at arm's length.
Like full on rejection. Like, Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know. But then again, that could be all perceived. That could be something I'm perceiving, or I've thought about going into queer spaces because queer male spaces are very physically driven.
Sure. Well, I mean, you hear about that and so many, not that there are any other podcasts about Drag Race, but I do listen to other queer voices in other places, right?
Yes.
And it's a very stereotype. I mean, again, white, straight, cis woman married to a white, straight, cis man, but like,
yeah,
you just hear about the stereotype and also too, as we talk about, like, I would never do some of the things people talk about, but I did absolutely, as a matron of honor, take somebody to Lips Drag Queen in New York. Like, we were
yeah,
that loud bachelorette party that they brought up on stage.
yeah.
We didn't touch it, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think it's great.
I love to be in queer spaces, and you also hear about that a lot, where it is very physically driven, very, very that. And so, like, that part gets, you're right. It is like mind reading, right? Of like, am I perceiving that, or is it really? And I talk about that as like a common thinking error of like trying to read into people's minds, but also, if you just listen to some other people, you can hear that that does happen sometimes.
Yeah, it does happen sometimes. Like, do you? And then this isn't okay. Do you find you like what is a vulnerable space for you where you're like, this is challenging. I'm either going to expose myself or not expose myself to it.
Oh, I mean, even this podcast, truly, because
really?
it's like, so I'm also, I'm a professor at the University of Kansas, and like, I feel really confident in my subject matter. This semester I'm teaching substance use disorders. And in the summer I'm teaching assessing self-harm and suicidality. And it's like, I feel really confident in that, but then also standing up in front of people, that imposter syndrome, I talked to you about that earlier last week when I was like, because I like could not send you the outline to this because I could not accept that it was really happening, that I was speaking to you, which you were so gracious about. And I'm like, hopefully he thinks I'm cute and not neurotic, maybe a little bit of both. But yeah, so putting myself in these situations where people are listening to what I have to say.
Totally.
And we just had mid-semester evaluations, and fortunately they were all extremely positive, and one somewhat negative, and gave me no feedback. Like, I just don't like you. And I'm like, that doesn't help me become better, but okay, you do you.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like, but then I actually did an episode of this show on imposter syndrome the week before my classes are on Thursday this semester. And it came out on Tuesday, I recorded on Monday. Of like, I am freaking out, even though that I feel very confident in what I have done to prepare myself and establish myself here. But I feel like I could fall on my face, or what if people just don't like me? Or what if people are,
Yeah.
And then I left like practically skipping because I had the best experience. Right. Yeah. It still is that space of like imposter syndrome, or just giving yourself a space to be critiqued is difficult. And especially in the pandemic, those spaces have been fewer and further between, because you're not seeing people, you're not talking to people, you're like, you can see this much of my face and like, hey, how's it going? And that's it. So I like how you mentioned, like, as we're starting to get back out in the world a little more, it's like there are going to be more opportunities for that, and that awareness needs to increase of like, how am I going to deal with this?
I will say, and then I was talking about podcasts, there's something powerful about exposing yourself to just the negative. Someone has something negative to say about you, I'm sorry, but they do. And I would say, literally, like, doing my podcast, especially Drag Her, because we all know how vocal Drag Race fans are. And I also struggle with it, right? Because I'm like, if someone wants to hear my podcast, I'm so happy. And I do acknowledge that there are, this is actually the first I'm hearing of this. There might be other gay people talking about this. Never. But if there is, I have to be like, well, I am talking about it. I have to believe in what I'm doing. If someone wants to enjoy the Pepsi Cola of gay Drag Race podcasts, I'm here for that. Maybe someone's a Pepsi girl. I'm just like, I have to let myself take the space, because it's like, someone does have something negative to say. And in a weird way, it is liberating when you just confront that and you're like, someone has something negative to say. That's okay. This is life. People are gonna have negative things to say. Not everyone is here to be your cheerleader.
Absolutely. And I think that is something that we talk about, of like being granting ourselves permission to take up space. And I feel like that has been very difficult for a lot of us for so long. And I do love that we're being so much more verbalizing. And when we talk about, like, we're vocal about mental health and expressing the things that are going on and being real instead of having to constantly put up a front. You know, I'm not posting on Instagram pictures of my son melting down, but if you want to talk to me about my 2.5-year-old acting like a teenager, I'd be happy to do that, right?
Yeah.
So, like, we're allowed to get into that space where we're allowed to talk a little more. And I actually was really interested, if I may go back to my example,
Please.
Of, like, tell me, somewhat negative, whereas everyone else was, so it was like extremely positive, somewhat positive, neutral, somewhat negative, extremely negative. Those were that was the range. And someone was somewhat negative, and I was like, okay, deep breath. Okay. No one died. You have 11 other people who said so extremely positive. So, and then I was like, and now I get to learn how I can be a better professor. Yeah. And it was literally, I can't even remember what the person said, because it was literally just like, it wasn't even really negative, their comments. So I'm like, okay, well then that was just somebody having a bad day or just genuinely not buying what I'm selling, and that's cool. And like, if someone doesn't like your opinion on drag or your other shows that you do, like, right, but I'm having fun, and a lot of people do. And yeah, and I do agree too. It's like sometimes like getting over that imperfection, which we know, like, imperfection comes from shame and our imperfection. And so it's like, I am not perfect. I am not perfect in this show. I am not perfect anywhere. And like, I'm going to put it out here for everybody to see.
Yeah. You know, this is interesting, because this is also making me think of how, like, I don't know, shame and feelings, like, obviously I'm a writer, and, but in my therapy journey, and I've taken to writing, and I feel I act as well, but I just feel better as a writer. But I'm finding that connects to my wellness journey, because I would love to outthink my emotions.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to feel again. But I grew up around very volatile, emotional people. So I started learning that emotions are bad. Or, you know what I mean? I'm like, emotions are bad. Anytime you're too emotional, everyone else has to pick up the pieces, which is why Will Smith slapping Chris Rock was triggering for me.
That was bananas.
That was classic manic behavior, right? Was that borderline, or was that manic? I mean, let's talk.
I just want to say, we actually had to have a lot of people take continuing education credits were created because a lot of therapists were diagnosing Donald Trump with antisocial personality disorder, narcissism, or narcissistic personality disorder, not antisocial, sorry. And so it's like, to be fair, I can't diagnose anybody because I've never met them in person, and I'm not licensed in California. But what I was thinking, so Will Smith laughed at first.
Yes, and I hated that.
And I was like, and I have to admit, I don't fully know everything. And so she has like alopecia or something, and that's why she decided to make that hairstyle choice. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's what I'm understanding. But it's unclear if Chris Rock knew that or not. I don't know.
And we all know, and of course, having everything going on, like in 2016, when he was like, Jada Pinkett Smith is boycotting the Oscars, but that's like me boycotting Rihanna's panties. I wasn't invited, neither was she, right? So like, they've got apparently at least some sort of past Oscar beef. I don't think Chris Rock knew. He literally said, he was like, it was a G.I. Jane joke. But my take my therapist cap off, my messy little girl over here, I was like, he saw, because we all know, we famously know, that they had marital problems. We know.
Yes.
Red table talks. So we know.
Yes.
My thought is, he laughed. It's on camera. She's going to see that he laughed. So now if he makes some big hullabaloo, it distracts from him laughing initially. And then it's like, well, look what I did. Oh, I did this to protect you. Oh, I chucked, but that was like nervous laughter. And look what else I did. I made a fool of myself for you. And then there's no threat of divorce papers later that night. I
hated it. It was triggering. I felt like the audience. I've been around a lot of manic behavior, and when he was smiling and laughing, I was like, this is so classic. You're not dealing with it, and everyone else is. You know what I mean? I hated that.
it made me, and it's funny because my husband just is, he's like meme after meme after he's just like wants to know more, tell me more. And I like literally this morning, one of the first things we did before our kids woke up, he's like on it again, and I'm like, I can't believe you're watching that again. Like I'm like uncomfortable physically.
It's very uncomfortable, but it's also fascinating to see because there are people who I enjoy who are also being like, yeah, that's right. That's how you defend your family. And I'm like, no, ma'am.
You know, it would have been one thing too, had he not if he'd have just sat in his seat and said, keep her name out of your mouth, that I think would have been a different implication. And also
agree. Still uncomfortable, but it would have been better.
Like violence is never the answer, I think, is what the old cliche that we're going with. And yeah, I mean, it was truly fascinating. And I have to admit, I actually want to go and watch. I have not been able to do it yet. I want to watch his acceptance speech because
I saw it. Yeah.
Is he manic?
My God. The speech is even worse. And once again, it was also triggering because I was like, okay, here we go. Because he is emotionally dealing with it, but he's also denying it, and he's explaining away. Like while it's happening, he's explaining away, and he literally he's saying things like, I guess I got too deep in the role, or he also says like, Richard or whatever his guy's King Richard, whatever. He's like, he also defended his family fiercely. And the audience is like, oh, it is so weird. It's so weird. And to me, I was like, no, I'm not doing, like, it was literally like, oh, this reminds me of my mom. I don't like this. Get me out of here. So yeah, I do agree. It is fascinating. It's a fascinating moment for us as cultural too, like just to be like, where do we stand on this? I think violence bad.
And I think it's a great exercise in sitting with the tension of two things. It's the sitting with the tension of paradox, right? Like two things can be true. Like it can be just a G.I. Jane joke. It can be offensive because she has a medical condition. It can be okay that you want to defend your loved one. It can really never be okay to just walk up and slap somebody. I know, like, sometimes I'm never going to tell someone to take a physical beating. I was actually impressed that Chris Rock didn't respond, didn't like, I don't know if I could watch somebody walk up and smack me in the face and then just be like, I'm not good. I don't know.
He was genuinely shocked. He was absolutely shocked. When you're like, you're just like, you're an offender bender. You're like, what just happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, I understand Chris Rock making a joke. I understand Jada Pinkett Smith not being happy that she got her hair. I'd be, oh, what is going on? That's weird. I would be very upset if somebody made fun of my hair. I'm sure people will have comments, but like all of those things can be true at once. And then also too, it's like, and also just like you slap somebody on international live television, like,
And I hate that though, because then there you go. Here goes my fear of emotions again, right? Because I've seen people go with emotions first. Multiple people in my family, I've been the one being like, no, think about it for a second. So there goes back to my like, can we outthink this? We can, but I really hate people just acting on it. So, but I'm learning that I need to feel a little bit more, because I have totally numbed or just shut stuff down, because I'm positive I can out logic my emotions.
Well, it's so interesting. I don't want to be like too psychotherapy.
Please, no. Moment. I want it. This is free.
But we talk about, like, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. And like, sitting with emotion is so hard for us, because we are taught from a very young age that you shouldn't feel that way. You should get over it. You shouldn't get your feelings hurt so much. Don't put your emotions and make somebody else have to do work on your behalf. Don't take up space. All of that we're taught. And I liked also what you were talking about, those like taking a second and thinking. Like, we talk about the wise mind that is made of the rational mind and the emotional mind, right? So you're looking for that sweet spot in the middle somewhere. Like, everything can't be 100% predicated on emotion, nor should it be 100% on your thinking, on like, oh, is that rational?
You called it the wise mind and the
Yes.
what? And the which?
So the rational mind,
The
and
rational-
the emotional mind.
Okay,
make up
got it.
The wise mind.
Oh,
right?
okay. I love this. Okay.
Yeah. And so, sorry, I feel like I'm teaching psychoeducation right now. I'm so sorry.
I mean, I want the free lesson. This is great.
Absolutely. But so that's exactly what I love what you're saying though, of like, if we could take a moment, which is why I go back to with the Will Smith thing, I'm like, well, he had some sort of secondary gain here. It was not, I do not, again, don't know him, can't diagnose him, not licensed in California, whatever. But like, I'm literally sitting there and I'm like, he has a secondary gain here. There's some sort of ulterior motive behind this. And I think it's because he laughed, because, you know, I didn't have to admit, I didn't get the joke because I haven't seen G.I. Jane. And I was like, oh, was Jada Pinkett Smith in G.I. Jane? And they're going to like reprise it and make a second one. Oh, it's a bald joke. Oh, okay. Like if you have to explain the joke, it ain't funny no more. But like, right. And so, but that's where I was just like, there's something else going on here where he's going to get something else out of this. Like, he's already nominated for an Academy Award. He's already got more money than God. He's, you know, this is not like some C-list actor trying to get their 15 minutes. There's some sort of familial something going on here where, or he just really hates Chris Rock.
You know what I think? So I was also like, I mean, yeah, I was also like, because I've been, like I said, manic people and people with borderline personality disorder. So I think, you know, and I don't know, I've been around these types who when they're I think he had a lot of emotion. He was like, I'm gonna win tonight, so I think he was like bubbling, he was boiling, like, so all the emotion was bubbling, it was at the surface, and the wrong thing triggered him, right? So because he was anticipating using that energy in a good avenue, or he didn't know what to do with that emotion. And unfortunately, which happens, I've seen with some people who have manic behavior, it manifested in the wrong way. It manifested in a way he did not anticipate, but he followed it because it took over and he was like, go. Emotion, like release that tension. Literally probably chemicals getting released and alleviated once he did that. That's what I think happened. And only afterward was he like, oh, I went into a blackout. I had no idea.
Full on reptile brain, full on. Yes. And I couldn't agree more, honestly. I see that for sure. That instead of having like a moment of like, not manipulation, but a moment of like, how am I going to like chess moves here? Instead, I agree with what you're saying of more like, I'm up here. Oh crap, that was not supposed to be triggered that way. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And it really does suck, because before that, I would have been so happy to watch him win that damn award. I was like, hey, Will, your career has been so long. Fucking grats. Yes. But instead, I was like, ugh, we're watching an assaulter be punished with what? An Oscar. I was like, this is so weird.
Yeah, I was the same way, because we really love that. I apologize, whatever the National Geographic show that he's on is beautiful. The photography on that is insane. Yeah. And of course, everyone grew up with The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We would watch that.
Same.
And you're right though, because then I had to look. I Googled and I was like, he won? And I had the emotion really. I was like, honestly, they should have taken it away. But like, that's crazy. I don't know how it works, but I was like,
I don't know what to do. And Chris Rock's not pressing charges, just fun update. Okay. Chris Rock's not pressing charges.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know how to feel. Obviously, it also becomes a really complicated conversation of, you know, how people, well, you know, no one wants to tell people in the BIPOC community how to process trauma. Correct. But it's still assault.
But it is still assault. That's at the end of the day, on camera, from multiple angles, in front of God and his nation.
Yes.
Like,
wild.
Oh man. Oh wow. Yeah.
Isn't it? I'm sure you find it interesting though, that like it's helping. This moment is just helping everyone talk about their feelings, right? It's like, this is so interesting that it has triggered emotions in 8 different directions for every single person.
That's so true. And that's why it's like, it feels sort of silly sometimes to talk about pop culture, but it's not, it's such a good reference of like you mentioned being triggered by watching it because you grew up with family members who either were showing those manic displays or had those attention seeking behaviors or were physically assaulted. And those are the things when you're just like, I'm just sitting here relaxing on a Sunday, or I don't know if you like did an Oscar party or something. Some people do parties.
It was pretty chill for me. Yeah, chill.
Right. But like, you're just sitting, you're just relaxing, having some popcorn, and all of a sudden you're like, childhood. Oh my God.
100%. 100%. And what do you say? Because, okay, if you had a patient or just, you know, a person, I don't know if you have patients. Do you have patients technically?
I call them clients. Yes.
Clients. Okay. Hypothetically, if you had a client and if a client told you, oh, you know, my husband, someone said something weird about me and my husband hit him and I felt so protected. What would you say to them?
Oh, well, I am always about solution focused, right? So I would ask them what is your goal in terms of your relationship with your husband? And then talking more about, and so then what is the need there to feel physically protected from somebody's words? And of course, too, I do not have any clients who are married to anybody close to being famous enough to be Will Smith.
I see.
Or who would be assaulting somebody as famous as Chris Rock, who, I mean, if we're being honest, like, from many perspectives, if Chris Rock were to press charges, think about the backlash he would get about being like,
exactly,
take your hit and shut up kind of a mood. So like,
which is great. Right. Abuse, the abuser loves that.
Toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
yes.
So I would have that conversation of like, what is it that you feel like you need in this relationship in order for you to feel protected? And if it is somebody kicking somebody else's ass, or is it like so obviously it would be very different for each person. And I would love to hear what Jada Pinkett Smith thinks. Like,
she looked pumped.
She did. Pumped. She looked plucked. And then she was like, oh, that's my man. And I'm like, okay. And also,
I hated it.
What is going on? I'm so
sorry. No, it's okay. And I want to add to the conversation, his son tweeted, Jaden tweeted, that's how we do it.
Okay, and see, I was curious.
I hated that. I hated it.
It's so fascinating to me to think, I've been reflecting on, actually, I'm glad that you told me that because I was curious about what Willow and Jaden said. So, because
that's how we do it. So that's then his father, he's now getting reinforced. Yep, my father assaulted someone and that's cool as hell. That's how we do. That's toxically masculine.
Absolutely correct.
Teaching abusive behavior.
Yes. And I just wonder how we would all respond had he not gotten up and physically put his hands on Chris Rock, if he'd have just said, keep my wife's name out of your mouth.
Yeah.
How would we all be responding right now? Because I think in that situation, it's like, I'm setting a boundary. I'm doing it aggressively because I'm sitting 50 meters away from you. So I have to scream it at you. And also he's dropping some F-bombs, but also, like I said, people bring all the letters in my room. Like, it's very safe. But like, that would have been such a different consideration. Of course, we coulda, woulda, shoulda all day. The difference between though, when you cross that line into the physicality of it. And like, I put my hands on somebody because that's how I felt like I needed to protect.
Because if he screamed out loud, I would have been like, okay, he's having an episode. He's a little unwell. But I would have been like, that's bad behavior. He's wild, attention seeking, as you were saying. I could have moved on. But now it's sticking. It's a sticking point. I don't like it.
Yeah, it was very tough to watch. And like I said, I couldn't imagine that Chris Rock was going to press charges. And to what end anyway? Like, I don't know what in California, what the law is for slapping somebody across the face, but
right.
So what, Will Smith's going to spend 24 hours in jail, or you have to pay a fine? I don't know. So,
right.
But again,
and for what it's worth, I just going to add Willow is radio silent on the socials, you know, and I'm not going to speak for Willow, but sometimes silence is loud. And you're like,
I think so.
I don't want to touch this.
Yeah. And I mean, that's such a position. And again, I agree with you in that reptile brain piece of like, he just went into another world. So it's not like he was sitting there thinking about like, oh, the implications that my children might have to deal with the ramifications of me getting up and bitch slapping Chris Rock. Like,
yeah.
But then
So
now you think about it.
I have a big question for you because this is what I'm dealing with. So selfishly, I want free advice.
Yes, go for it.
I am, obviously whatever. It's no secret. My mom is too much. And my mom very much has classic borderline personality traits. She's very hot and cold, very self-centered. And I am now dealing with like, what is the cost of me expressing myself and taking space in this relationship? Because I've learned to diminish myself, because anytime I take space, it creates a cataclysm. It creates a new set of problems for me. It creates chaos, emotion, all this stuff. So I've learned to just be like, just don't say anything.
Yeah.
And I'm having a hard time figuring out the line between taking space as me and if not expressing myself is a form of being good to myself.
I couldn't agree more that it could be a form of that, right? It's like, what is your goal in your relationship with your mom? So if your goal is to become best friends with her and be able to tell her all of your deepest and darkest secrets, then of course not taking up space is not going to accomplish that for you. But if your goal is to be able to, she still lives in North Carolina. If your goal is to be able to pop by once in the summer every year for a week and say hi or whatever it might be, sometimes it's difficult because we feel this external pressure to be best friends with our blood family. And it's like, to what end though? And like, what is the goal there? So I agree with like, not to not be yourself, because that would never be something that I would encourage, but also setting that boundary of like, I know that I can only speak on these topics to these ideals about these things to these certain people is not necessarily a bad thing. Again, depending on what your specific goal is with whatever family member or loved one it is.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's tough. I do honestly feel like my mom can't learn. So that's like one thing that's preventing me from being like, let's get to a new plateau together. I'm like, you can't learn. Like, so I'm still negotiating that.
Well, and she's not that it's any of my business, but like, it'd be interesting if she like is getting her own services and help somewhere and being able to figure out things that are
no.
That's a very hard pass. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So absolutely. And I think it is tough because we all have this Norman Rockwell idea of what a family is supposed to be. And we're spoon-fed that from a very young age. And even though we're now in a space where we can verbalize and accept that the families are the ones that we create, or that not, we don't have to share all of every part of ourselves with everybody. And also it's tough when if that's something that you want, then it's figuring out, and it's a calculated game, and then you're not being your authentic self.
Yeah, I'm gonna figure this out. I don't know. Yeah, it is like obviously boundaries are just one way to do it, and now I need to figure out how to define those boundaries, or also it's like reinforcing those boundaries too, right? Because I feel like she doesn't love to remember our boundary. It's kind of like we have the conversation, and sometimes it's like, parents, they'd be like that. It's gone. It's gone. Yeah.
Well, I think it's very helpful when we frame boundaries too as the distance at which I can love you and me at the same time versus I need you to do this because you suck. It's I would like for you to do this because I would like to spend more time with you. And for me to be able to be more involved in your life, I need these things. And no one likes boundaries. They're hard to set. They're hard to maintain. And certainly nobody, even without borderline personality traits, wants to hear, I don't like this about you. Certainly. Yeah. So they all suck. And we all own that about boundaries. It's just framing it in a way of like, I would like to be more involved with you. I would like to be a part of your life. I would like you to be a part of my life. And in order for me to feel comfortable doing that, I need these things to happen versus here's why I think you suck.
Here's why you're such an asshole. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, this is good. I'll chew on this.
Yeah, hopefully your mom, I assume she doesn't listen to this podcast. So.
No, not likely. And if she does, you know what? Let's have a conversation now. She doesn't listen to podcasts.
We'll bring her on. I know, it's so funny. My mom's like, yes, I'm going to listen to your podcast. I don't like podcasts, but I'm going to listen to yours.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Mom. I have the mouth of a sailor.
Yeah. No, I literally, I was in New York with a couple of girlfriends last week and I said, fuck, like every fifth word. And I was like, my son's starting to repeat things. I got to maybe think about saying that.
You know what though? I've got to say, language is fun. I don't believe in censoring. I don't believe it. I don't like it.
I agree. And I also don't want him to get sent home from daycare.
That's the tough part. That's the tough part.
Yeah, I do very much agree. I am sex positive. I am anti-kink shaming. I am anti censorship, all of that. I have these conversations with people all the time as clients, but like, that is one thing where I'm like, I don't want my kid getting out of daycare and then I have to cancel the rest of my day.
Totally. And I have to say, my mom had the mouth of a sailor, and here's a pro. I literally think I learned from her like a joy of language.
Yeah.
And I literally like cuss words are so fun, and like,
yes, there's power. There's like physical, emotional power behind it.
Yeah, I mean, right. They make us laugh. They make us look at truths in a new way. When you create a new twist on a vulgarity, it's fascinating. And I genuinely think like this sort of like fascination with language came from her and kind of led to my creativity writing journey.
Yeah. Well, again, we talk about how that trauma informs like creativity and comedy and like a defense mechanism of being able to be quick and quippy and all of that for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a good time. Okay, wait, I don't want to be more vulgar, but I have to, no, this is too vulgar.
Oh my gosh. Hey.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to say this, but just so we know how fun language can be. Yeah. I was on the phone with my mom and she was talking about a woman she did not care for very much. Yes. And she referred to her as a, quote, fucked out whore. And I was like, Mom, I've never heard that. I was like, yeah, she's fucked out.
I've never heard that verbiage or that like.
Me neither.
As a descriptor.
Me neither. And I was like, Mom, that's fun. That's fun language. Like,
look, we're bonding.
Yeah, we're bonding. You're a lot. But I'm finding joy in this exchange for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. I'm gonna have to start using that now because
She's fucked out.
Never fucked out before.
And please say he's fucked out too, everyone. Please let's not just shame women. Let's shame men.
Men can be shamed just as much. He should say absolutely. That's absolutely right. So I wanted to talk about one thing that you've mentioned it a number of times in a number of your shows.
Yes.
And I love how organically it comes up. And I don't feel like I'm going to have another another guest on in a while who I want to make sure I don't miss it. So you have talked about how like looking at magazines and porn and like forcing yourself from those expectations. And like you used the expression was like deprogramming your brain from like body shame porn. And I would just love for you to share that with my set of listeners because I listened to it and literally the first time you started talking about that, I was like, I need him on my podcast.
Yeah. It's a tough thing, I think, being gay and looking at gay porn and even just like growing up with Abercrombie and Fitch, which I talk about all the time. Yeah. It's a weird thing where, and I think this could be true for a lot of queer people. There's a weird thing that happens when arousal triggers shame too, right? Because my porn is my trigger. Sure. And what I mean by that is I see something very arousing. And then I also have to say, I'm a man. I'm looking at another man arousing me. Why am I not that? Or like, I understand, since my brain reacted to it, I understand that someone else would react to me the same way if I looked like that. Which is, why you see a lot of gay men who are image obsessed. And that's why all those stereotypes, there's truth in those stereotypes of gay men have to look a certain way, have to work on their body, have to be cut up to hell. Yeah. So it's really triggering because I did lose a lot of weight and I did get more attention as I lost more weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it definitely created a very weird, positive
a feedback loop. Yeah.
That's it. That's the word. Feedback loop. Where I was like, well, the more I lose, the more attention you get and the better you are.
Mm-hmm.
So, but bodies are unique. And I'm learning, everybody's unique. Everybody is cartoonishly unique. I mean, bodies put snowflakes to shame. In their uniqueness. Yeah. I used to say it about penises, which is also true. They put the snowflake to shame. Because it's like they're so different. And I am on my journey of, celebrating what I got and accepting that my body might not look like this one body type, which is, the muscly and thin, perfectly every kind of curve Adonis that the queer community idolizes.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hard.
That has to be so difficult because that is really what we were fed, again, the Abercrombie of it all, right?
Yeah.
And then even so far as being selective in the porn that you watch or the magazines that you choose to read. And it's like, I was so fascinated. I was like, we don't talk about this enough.
Yeah.
We don't bring awareness to that and like what subtle messages that we're allowed. I mean, I guess there's really nothing subtle about porn, but like the messaging behind, right? Like the messaging behind that's coming.
Right, but Instagram is insidious, right? Instagram serves it to us, and many of us are on Instagram, so you're like, whoa, this is giving me a feeling.
Uh-huh.
Do you get triggered at all when you see a thoughty, beautiful woman expressing herself, or are you able to be like, that's her journey?
So for myself, in terms of like the body, so I've had given birth to 2 kids. I've had 2 C-sections. I have like this very prominent lines, like in a bathing suit, you can see my C-section line because I don't have a perfectly flat stomach. And so like,
I have a scar too.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like, and I am able to, I try to be more self-aware with my mindfulness practices and like my self-talk journey and being able to say like, yes, but you Ziploc baggied out 2 beautiful children who are healthy. And isn't that wonderful? And
Ziploc, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so then I also, in terms of like the judgment piece, I really am these days just trying to get so far on the other side of like, love that journey for you.
Yeah.
Mary Alexis Rose of it all, like, well, that's not how I choose to spend my time, but hey, especially I'm like, you're making money on that. Good for you, friend. You've never had to work a day in your life and you look like that and you're doing all that. Okay.
Yeah. I'm having little wins too on that. And I'm like I said, I felt like I exposed myself when I went to go hang out with a party with a lot of white gay hotties.
Yeah.
And I just actually believing it. I think before I used to like say it because I knew it should be true.
Yes.
Yeah, but now I'm like, that's their journey, man. They're let them have their journey. You have your journey, and celebrating truly celebrating, like, you got your own fun. You got so many cool, fun things going for you. Why don't you celebrate those and just accept that we're not all Xeroxes of one another.
And I do think that there's something very beautiful in that. And I hate to be an encyclopedia of your show, but I remember you had a conversation with Joseph about Monique Hart's comments about like, you are perfect as you are. And I think Joseph had asked you like, but do you really believe that she believes that? And it's like, I do believe that Monique Hart believes that, but do I believe that a more neurotic queen might say that because she feels like that's what she's supposed to say for her Instagram story or for this, the editor, on the episode, all right? And it's like, I think there's something to be said for fake it till you make it, right? Like if you start telling yourself like, love that journey for her, that's not for me, even though maybe you don't believe it in that moment, like getting yourself to that space because we're always just trying to get to that next place of being better and really believing it. So it's tough though. I mean, it continues to be tough. We continue to see photoshopped and everything being airbrushed and you worry about that for the next generation as well as technology continues to improve but I remember that part of your conversation and I was like, I think Monique Hart really did mean that.
Yeah. I think so. And I think that's such a gift. Some people genuinely seem to have more, they can access that self-love more easily. And I really, really admire that. And here we go. We're connecting dots again. Okay. I found out why I'm so cynical. And I had a hard time accessing that is because I felt some part of me felt like it's delusional to like kind of blindly love yourself. And and that's not, I don't know if that's true, but that's how I felt. And I was like, but wait. So I was like, it almost felt like, it almost feels more grounded or honest to have self-doubt. Yeah. And some part of me in my quest for being grounded and avoiding over emotionality. Yes. I was like, this is truthful. Truth is good. Stick to truth. Like I'm afraid of getting lost in a fantasy. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is an interesting thing to think about, like the delusional space of being like, I love everything about me. It's kind of the difference between like shame and guilt though, right? So we talk about like shame is I am bad, I'm a bad person. Guilt is, ooh, not going to do that again, right? Like we don't walk through life being like, everything I do is perfect and I make no wrong choices and I'm not making changes for anybody ever. That is delusional. That is a bad space. Like we want to have that self-awareness component of being like, okay, gonna make some changes, but then also like loving yourself to the core of your humanity of like me as a person versus me with 20 extra pounds or 20 less pounds or whatever else it might be. Yeah. And they aren't as exclusive as I once thought they were. You know, I treated them as exclusive, but they're not. They're not. Again, it's sitting with that tension of paradox, right? Like, yes, and two things can be true. Many things can be true at once. And it's actually a strong component of DBT of with people with borderline personalities where we use dialectical behavior therapy a lot, where it's like A and B all exist at the same time. They don't become C. They both exist separately and together. So it's tough. It's a journey. It continues. It is such a damn journey. Yes. My gosh. Mano, here's the thing. I could talk to you for another hour and would happily do so. I know you're a busy human, so I don't want to be rude and take up any more of your time, but I do want to thank you. What a treat. We got to hit the pop culture highs too. We got to talk about Will Smith. Oh, actually, how fun. Thank you for letting me process that because I specifically did this because this episode is dropping tomorrow. So this is a very this will be so fresh. So fresh. But so we're recording this Monday. It happened on Sunday and y'all are going to hear about it on Tuesday. Because sometimes I'll record podcasts and I'm like, oh, it's not for like another month and a half. But this one I'm like, oh, it's Mano. He's going on Tuesday. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. You helped me to be able to process that. Cause like I said, my husband woke up this morning and immediately was like, what else happened? What else happened on LA time? Right. Oh my gosh, crazy. So Mano, where can everybody find you? Yeah, you can just find me at my name at Mano Agapion. Listen to all my podcasts, Drag Her if you love drag. We Love Trash if you like trashy movies and trashy TV shows. And Podcast Kill the Video Star if you're obsessed with music videos spanning the TRL era to now. Yes, amazing. Well, again, thank you. What a treat, what a dream. Your name is literally on, I'm going to show you, on a Post-it note. Also, somebody Rachel Bloom is on my list of people who I want to manifested. I haven't yet, but she's on my list too. So I'm like looking at your name right now and be like, yes. Yep. So yes. Thank you so much for your time. It was a treat. Thank you for the free therapy tidbits. Happy to. And for everybody out there, remember, be curious, not judgmental. Make it a good one.